Please stand to salute the flag. Clerk will take the roll.
Councilor Vigo.
Present.
Councilor Lopez.
Here.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilor Brown.
Here.
Councilor Bishop.
Present.
Councilor Tahada.
Present.
Councilor Avellaneda. Councilor Robinson. Councilor Pilatanda. Councilor Garcia. And Councilor Ray Cooperall. 8 members present. You have a quorum, Madam Chairman. The call of the meeting, please be advised that Damali Vido, President of Chelsea City Council, has called for a special meeting for Monday, February 26, 2018, at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers, 500 Broadway, Chelsea, Mass., to address the following topics: salute to the flag, roll call of members, state of the city report by the city manager.
Councilor Tahada.
I move to accept the call of the meeting under suspension if there's no objections.
Seeing
Madam
none.
President?
At this time, I'll suspend the rules for the city manager to address the public.
So, Madam President, members of the council, distinguished guests, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight briefly on the state of the city in 2018. I'm going to avoid making this a list of accomplishments, not because we don't have any, we have many, and not because I'm not proud to tout them, I certainly am. But I just want to focus on a few broad topics tonight. Tell you about some of the things that I hope to accomplish in 2018, and in doing so, I'll be able to demonstrate to you why I'm optimistic about the state of the city tonight and in the years ahead. So, I regularly say that this city is blessed with incredibly effective collaboration among residents, nonprofits, and local government, more so than any comparable community. I think I say it so often that people think it's some empty platitude, some throwaway compliment I use, but it's not. I think to really appreciate what you have in Chelsea, take a step back and look at what's been achieved working collaboratively with local government, nonprofits, and residents in just this past year alone. So, with invaluable support from Green Roots and MGH Chelsea, Chelsea was awarded the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation Culture of Health Award in 2017, one of only 8 communities in the whole nation that were so honored. That prize recognized the city's commitment to creating a healthy environment for all of its residents. Working with the neighborhood developers, ROCA, the Chelsea Collaborative, and the Chamber of Commerce, the city was awarded last year a $1 million burn grant to improve public safety in the city's downtown. This was the second year in a row that the city had gotten a $1 million grant from the Department of Justice, following on the heels of 2016's $1 million grant from the Department of Justice's Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention. 2 years in a row, a $1 million grant. For the last several months, our downtown coordinator has been meeting with the Chamber, property owners, and property managers on Broadway on a grant application to Mass Development to help us transform the block on Broadway between 5th Street and 4th Street. We are going to hear on that grant in the next few weeks, and I'm reasonably confident we're going to be successful. But even if we're not, we have a committed team ready to help us tackle the challenges in that block. And I think the most remarkable one of all is that we learned this past Wednesday that out of 320 municipalities nationwide, Chelsea was only one of 35 cities and the only one in Massachusetts other than Boston to make it to the second round of the Bloomberg Philanthropies Innovation Challenge. 4 of those cities are going to get $1 million prize from Bloomberg, and one of them is going to win a grand prize of $5 million. We have reason to believe that our proposal to solidify and replicate in other communities our hub and core harm and crime reduction model, we really have reason to believe that that is going to be a worthy contender for one of these Bloomberg top prizes. All of this is proof that reputable institutions, both inside Massachusetts and outside Massachusetts, recognize the collaborative and innovative work that takes place right here in your city of Chelsea every single day, often without a lot of fanfare, but with really incredible results. And this city council should be really proud of these effective collaborative efforts because they've happened only with your strong support. Now, I'll say that one place where our collaborative approach has been most rewarding to me personally has been in the downtown. I want to focus on the downtown for a minute because, as you know, that's really been a huge priority for me for all 3 years that I've been here as city manager. Now, for the past year, we've had a task force of police officers dedicated to the downtown, inspectional service, Chamber of Commerce, business owners, property owners, other city departments, meeting every single week in the police department to talk about the problems in the business district and to collectively try to figure out best strategies for addressing them. This council has been very supportive of that collaboration due to its own heavy investment in the downtown. Remember, you have significant public safety dollars invested in there, in overtime, walking patrols, and just general increased police visibility. We have planning department dollars invested there, not just in the reimagining Broadway and that infrastructure work, but in our downtown coordinator and the services we built around her. And she spent the last year planning events, engaging business owners, doing business technical support, and basically mobilizing that business community to support our efforts. And we have significant human services capital invested there. Our 2 navigators or street workers through our contract with North Suffolk. Our wraparound housing and general support services through CAPIC. And this year, for the first time, a 3rd contract, a case management services contract that allows us to track and support individuals as they transition out of jail and detox so that we can follow them and ensure that they're staying on the right track. I don't think it's a stretch to say that these investments that you made are paying off. Individuals are getting the help they need. And equally important to us, the business owners, the ones we talk to every day and work in that environment every single day, they do feel that that downtown is different in terms of the level of comfort and safety that exists there. And they have a sense of optimism about what's to come in the downtown. And I think that optimism for the downtown is justified. So in 2 weeks, after over a year of public input, we're going to be presenting at a final public hearing the final design schemes developed by our consultant, Nelson Nygaard, for this reimagining of Broadway. There are going to be 2 schemes, a one-way scheme and a two-way scheme, the latter of which has significant aesthetic and safety benefits. You know I am a strong proponent of the two-way Broadway scheme, and I will be advocating as hard as possible for its adoption. But I can tell you, even if the Traffic Commission and this city council decides that it's the one-way scheme that they prefer, you're going to see that even that scheme, which we'll unveil in 2 weeks, that has major improvements for pedestrian and traffic safety. So I'm encouraging everyone to attend the public meeting, March 14th at the Williams School, where we are going to unveil these what I consider very exciting proposals for the downtown. Now, at the same time that that redesign process is ongoing this year, we're going to be moving forward with our effort for redevelopment of the Salvation Army as a mixed-use development. And although the particulars of that development are unknown at this point, the RFP is not ready yet, it's definitely going to include activation of the streetscape and affordable units above. And I'm reasonably believe, I actually believe, that that redevelopment of that site, because it's so critically located, may be the spark that's needed to really transform that block between 5th and 4th Street. And as I said, I'm hoping that in a few weeks we'll know that Mass Development is going to be our partner in that transformation. Now, it's not just Broadway where I'm anticipating there's going to be development in the next year. So for one, we are starting to see some legitimate movement and developer interest on some of these long dormant waterfront parcels. The most significant of those, obviously, is the Forbes site, which encompasses 19 acres of undeveloped land on our waterfront. I expect that owner to be coming forth in the next month or two with a significant mixed-use development proposal, much of which is likely to be allowed as a matter of right by our waterfront zoning district. So, given that, our goal for that project has to be to ensure that the public benefits of that project, particularly the public access to the waterfront there, is not only significant, but it is an early action item so that the public is benefiting right from the beginning of that project and not waiting for its completion, which is likely to take several years to play itself out. In other areas of the waterfront, most of which remain in that designated port area district or designation, the way in which we're looking to control development and make it work best for our residents is through our municipal harbor plan. And that, I can report, finally, after a lot of delay, is moving forward. So we have a consultant under contract, UTIL. Remember, we got a grant from the Seaport Economic Council to do this work. So UTIL is finally under contract. We had our initial meeting with them last week. We're moving forward on the required application for a notice to proceed, which has to be issued by Coastal Zone Management. And I expect that public process will commence with an initial public meeting that you'll certainly be engaged and involved with, probably sometime in mid-spring. So that project is moving forward. The final place where I know we're going to see a lot of development happen is in the Silver Line corridor. So with the completion of that Phase 1 approaching, and my understanding is that Phase 1 of the Silver Line is going to officially have its groundbreaking on April 21st. That's when the first buses are going to roll. With that opening, we can expect a lot of proposals from developers on parcels along that corridor. We've already had developers in on parcels on 6th Street and Cottage Street, and I expect that to only continue in the next few months. Now, I know that for some of you, the thought of more development in the city raises a lot of concerns. Those are legitimate concerns that I recognize. But I've said many times that a municipality, even one as dense as Chelsea, cannot afford to shut itself off from further development. And I say that because with the constraints that are imposed on Massachusetts municipalities by Proposition 2.5, development and new growth is really the only significant way that cities and towns are able to generate the revenues they need to maintain adequate services. Cities and towns in Massachusetts either continue to develop or they die. It is the essence of what Proposition 2.5 has wrought. So, knowing that that additional development is likely to occur, and knowing that it's only going to intensify as transportation options to Boston improve, we've got to figure out the best way to make that interest work to our advantage. So, among the most significant challenges that we face in this realm is the lack of housing affordability. So how can we use the strong position that we have to make an impact there? Well, one tack that we've taken, and we might want to do more of this in the future, is to participate directly in transactions that allow us to create more affordability. And so we did that with the Salvation Army site. We bought that property, and because we own it, we will dictate the level of affordability that happens there. I suggest that maybe we consider other acquisitions in the future and do something similar. We can either do that the way we did it with Salvation Army through use of reserves, or we have another tool, Community Preservation Act funds, which we can also use. Now, I don't have anything specific in mind. I assure you, I'm not holding out some project. But I would say that if another opportunity like Salvation Army were to present itself, particularly on Broadway, I would come back here advocating again for another acquisition by the city, because I think it can be extremely helpful in our efforts. The other approach we can take is to encourage affordability through tax incentives, tax increment financing, which we typically have used for commercial properties, but can use for residential properties. And that is something I am going to propose to this council for a particular project in the next few months, and that's the Innis project. You'll recall, the Innis project is the proposed partnership between the Chelsea Housing Authority and Jay Corcoran to redevelop the 96 Housing Authority units on Central Avenue as part of a significant redevelopment of that whole site and intersperse those units as part of a 300-plus unit market rate development. I strongly support that project. It is the only way we will ever provide better units for those Housing Authority residents. But it appears it's only going to work economically with some financial support from the city. Despite all the other monies they have gotten from the state and other sources, the city's going to have to contribute in that project. And I want to and I will. So at some point this year, I will be presenting to the City Council a tax increment finance proposal to make that project move forward. And I hope you'll support it. We might find other opportunities similar to Innis where we want to use that same tool. Now, the good news is that the city has the financial flexibility to do these things, to acquire property, to offer TIFs, because we have a very strong financial position. A month ago, I reported to you a free cash balance of almost $34 million. That was almost identical to what we had in fiscal year 16, despite all the major investments we made in that intervening year. We still ended up with a free cash balance of almost $34 million. Now, I give full credit to this council, to past councils, and to my predecessor for that financial stewardship. But I have to tell you that having that level of reserves has to give us a little bit of pause. It's always been a little unsettling to me that a city like this, that has the needs that we have, has that much money in reserve. Government isn't supposed to be a profit-making enterprise. Our goal isn't to make money year after year. For a local government, our goal, our core mission, is to provide services to our residents. So it is my strong opinion that with that kind of money in reserves, with that level of reserves in the city, we have an obligation, a fiduciary duty almost, to invest that reserves in our city and in more and better city services. And that will be something, that's something you've seen from me in past years, and you'll continue to see from me this year. So I presented to you a month or so ago a capital improvement plan that proposes in fiscal 19 to spend $11.6 million in capital improvements, $4.5 million of that coming out of those free cash reserves. That plan includes lots of investments in new streets and sidewalks, water and sewer repairs, public building improvements, new public parks. There's an even greater level of investment proposed for FY20, and I certainly hope that after the required public hearing, this council will approve all of those expenditures. But I'm also considering using some reserves for service-related expenditures outside of the capital improvement plan, and I'm going to be presenting some of those to this council in the next few weeks and months. I want to do more youth programming. I want to do a workforce investment initiative so that our residents are prepared for the 4,000 jobs that are going to open up once that casino opens next year. I'm exploring the acquisition of standardized barrows for the community so we can make a dent in this rodent problem. And I'm even talking with the senior center about the possibility of some sort of pilot program for some senior transportation. That happens in a lot of other communities. Now, all of these ideas cost money to implement. And if they're approved, they will reduce our reserves. But at the end of the day, we are not going to be judged by how much money we have in the bank. We are going to be judged by whether we improve the lives of our residents. And that is my overriding motivation here as city manager. I want to turn briefly to the school department. We can't improve the lives of our residents unless they have a good public school system in which to educate their children. You've heard me speak often about how essential it is for an urban community like Chelsea to have a good and well-respected school system. You can't attract and maintain good families in a city without that. And all of us, myself included, we fall into the habit sometimes of looking at the school department in pure monetary terms. They're a large part of our budget, and each year it demands a lot of our discretionary revenue. But we have to avoid the temptation that happens in a lot of Massachusetts municipalities of looking at the schools as just another department of government competing for limited resources. Instead, we have to consider our schools as a co-equal partner in improving our community. And I think it's easier to do that, to look at them as a co-equal partner, when we recognize the strengths of the system and how they've been such a positive factor in making the lives of our residents better. So for this Chelsea School Department, this superintendent have been at the forefront of statewide efforts to bring greater equity to Chapter 70 formulas. No one has led that battle more than our school department and our superintendent. It's been the school department that was the guiding force behind creating that new, beautiful Clark Avenue Middle School. And it's the school department that has ensured that after 3 years, that building remains on time and on budget. And I can tell you that it is. It's been the school department that pushed for the creation of an alternative high school so that students struggling in the typical academic setting are not left behind. And it's the school department that has been the driving force behind this incredible dual enrollment program with Bunker Hill that has saved our students hundreds of thousands of tuition dollars and given our students, the ones with financial constraints, and we have many of those, given them a legitimate chance at a higher education degree. So a year ago, last school year, there were 87 Chelsea High School students in that dual enrollment program, and more than half of them went on to matriculate at Bunker Hill seeking a full associate's degree. This effort to ensure that Chelsea High School students who graduate can attain a higher education goal is a compelling one. It's actually so compelling to me that I've been meeting with the school department in Bunker Hill for about the last month and a half to develop a pilot proposal funded by the city, which would allow any Chelsea High School student who's involved in that dual enrollment program, who graduates and wants to go to Bunker Hill, to go there and attain their full associate's degree at no additional cost. And I'm going to be presenting that pilot proposal to this council in a few weeks. And I hope that this council will approve that. Again, I don't look, and we can't look, at funding the school department as a burden. It's an investment in our children and an investment in the city's future. So there's just one final point I want to make before I close. An important goal of government is to engage its residents. No matter how many accomplishments we attain, we're at our strongest when the people who live here are connected and feel some stake in the city's success. We make that connection much easier for our residents when information about our government is transparent and easily accessible. This council and past councils have been very insistent with me that transparency and resident engagement has to be a high priority. So I want to report tonight that we've actually made some progress in meeting that directive. So just in this past year alone, we completely revamped our website to make it more relevant and more informative. We hired a social media specialist. We created a Facebook and a Twitter account. And just recently, we signed this contract with OpenGov, which is an open data vendor, the sole purpose of which is to ensure the regular publishing of municipal information in formats that are not only accessible, but easily understandable to the average resident. We didn't do any of this to be trendy. We did it so that we could try to better engage our residents in local government. And I'm actually hoping that as this OpenGov system comes online over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, you'll get some positive feedback from our residents about transparency. So I started out by saying I'm optimistic about this city. But let's be honest, unforeseen circumstances, policy decisions in Washington, economic factors beyond our control, any and all of those things can undermine the best laid plans of any municipality. But I actually think the risk of that happening here in Chelsea is low because you have such strong foundations. There's a very real and unique cohesiveness in this community. It's all the more remarkable given the divisiveness that exists elsewhere in this nation. But here in Chelsea, to the credit of the people who live here and who work here, we've stayed united. We've kept our discourse calm. For the most part, you've kept your disagreements civil. And despite the negative national rhetoric, Chelsea remains a welcoming and caring community for everyone who arrives here. It's all of that that leads me to love the role I have here, to love this city, to be optimistic about its future, and be able to say to you tonight, without any hesitation or reservation, that the state of the city of Chelsea in 2018 is very, very solid. So thank you. May God continue to bless this wonderful community.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Seeing no further business before this council, this meeting is adjourned.